So when we encourage one another's dreams and aspirations, we form more positive emotional connections. So when we focus on each other's dreams, we can also help our partners find shared meaning when there's a conflict, right? Because the idea is that we start to focus less on the conflict itself and more on the dreams, goals, and wishes that underlie each person's fixed position within that struggle. Hey, Mama. Welcome to the Stethoscopes to Swaddles podcast, episode number 71. So today on the podcast, we are going to be wrapping up the relationship series by talking about finding shared meaning. And so we're going to talk about a few things. One, which is the benefits of discovering shared meaning. And then how do we achieve shared meaning in our relationships? And how do we put it all together? So before I begin, I want to share a thought that I had the other day. And it has to do with the fact that many of us, I think, have had this misunderstanding. I don't want to say it's confusion. It's probably a misunderstanding that relationships can be put in a set it or forget it kind of mindset. You meet the person, whether it's your spouse, your friend, your child, and you just go through the motions and the relationship just evolves organically, quote unquote, because that's a very commonly used word these days, organically. So you go through this relationship with this false belief that if there's a problem, something has gone terribly wrong, or that it's not it doesn't have to be work. And as I was thinking about that, what came up for me was the idea of continuing medical education. So if you're in the medical field, this may make sense. And if you're not, I just want to tell you, in the medical profession, we have to do a specific number of continuing medical education credits, or if you're a nurse, it's continuing nursing education. Whatever it is for your specific job, right? You have to have a number of hours showing that you're continuing to study and understand your competency and continue education, right? So it's if you are in anesthesia now as a nurse anesthetist, we have to do these core modules, and then we have to recertify, and we have to whatever. And part of it is that you get these credits, right? I'm going to tell you the what is the purpose, right? Continuing medical education is those activities that serve to maintain, develop, or increase the knowledge, skills, and professional performance and relationships that a provider uses to provide services for patients, the public, or the profession, right? And so they have to go through this approval process, and you take them every year. So when I was thinking about that, because I was just trying to evaluate how many hours I had for the year and if I had met my quota, I was thinking about the fact that we don't really think about continuing relationship education as a thing. If you think about our relationships, we spend a bulk majority of our lives in those relationships, whether it's marriage, our relationship with our kids, our relationship with our friends, our colleagues, those relationships are so important. And I just thought about the fact that we are not expected to continue to grow. We're not expected to continue to show quote unquote competency or show advancement in our knowledge or our skills, right? Yet if you think about those relationships, how could they benefit from us showing up and learning more and building our skills and building our resilience and showing up better? When I thought about this, it really reinforced to me why sharing mindset shifts, whether it's on relationships or your own life, your career, your motherhood, all those things, it reinforced to me why this is so important. Because we have to continue to grow and understand ourselves. And so, a lot of the times we just kind of show up in relationships as passive participants. And I want to offer all of us to take notice of when we are not taking massive responsibility in our relationships to up-level ourselves so we can be the best versions of ourselves in those relationships so that those relationships can then up-level. So we'll get started on today's episode. I just kind of wanted to share that insight because when I was thinking about it, I was like, yeah, like I have to have like 60 hours of class A, or I don't even remember how many, but it's like 60 hours over 4 years demonstrating that I'm spending time getting better at the profession and understanding my skills and refining them. And what if we could just like tell ourselves, I want to have a standard where I literally spend 20 hours a year, which is about 2 hours a month, just growing and like strengthening that relationship muscle so that I can be showing up in relationships and be intentional and like really, really, really understand myself and understand my partner, understand my kid, understand my friend. What if we could just make that something to pursue? Of course, over time, I've evolved in like wanting to do better and know better. I kind of told myself, I'm going to do better to understand myself and my relationships, and I'm going to be intentional about it so that I can like go ahead of my community and show them like what's possible when we intentionally 100% try to learn and try to do better. I say that because two things. One, I really do enjoy the work that I do, but I'm also now like deeply and like involved in like understanding relationships. I mentioned it last week on the podcast. I am taking some courses with the Gottman Institute, and like it's 2 different levels of certification. And then I'm taking another course to be a leader, to lead in the workshop of the 7 principles for making marriage work. And so, of course, I have to like understand the concepts and like really work on them. But when I thought about that, I was like, wouldn't it be nice if we all as moms and women like invested that kind of time to be better in our relationship? Let us get started on the episode about finding shared meaning. Hey, mama. You deserve a life free of overwhelm and burnout. Welcome to the Stethoscopes to Swaddles podcast. I'm your host, life and mindset coach, Shiro Bergbauer. I'm also a wife, mom, and CRNA. This is the podcast for high-achieving mamas in medicine like you and I. Together, we'll learn how to navigate the ups and downs of working motherhood. If you're looking to thrive in your relationships and overcome overwhelm in your motherhood, marriage, and medicine, you're in the right place. Welcome to the Stethoscopes to Swaddles podcast. There is a concept of the idea of the sound relationship house. And the sound relationship house is something I learned about in the 7 principles for making marriage work. And so it's like you have a foundational secure partnership, which is like a house. And then it has weight-bearing walls. The 2 walls of the house are trust and commitment. And then you build these levels. You create a sturdy bond. The floors of the house is, the first floor is building love maps. The second floor is shared fondness and admiration. The third level is turning towards each other instead of against. Level 5 is the positive perspective. Level 6 is managing conflict. Level 7 is making life dreams come true. And level 8 is creating shared meaning. And so why I wanted to first start the conversation today about that is that the top of the sound relationship house functions much like its foundation. But on this level, you're building and understanding the inner world as a couple. So you're doing it together. You're creating all sorts of things to like grow as a couple. What is the benefit of discovering shared meaning? One is that it leads to greater stability in our relationship with the people that we want to have better relationship with. Second, it helps us settle conflicts and collectively pursue the goals that really matter to us, like raising healthy children, building a successful business, taking care of our loved ones, our elderly family members. It helps us do it together with shared understanding. And when 2 people find meaning, they're willing to support each other's dreams. Like even when like there's little to gain personally from doing so. Like, for example, if you have a friend and you have shared meaning and you want them to help them get this job and you just support them, even though there's no actual gain to doing it, it just helps the relationship thrive. And when people agree that their relationships lend meaning to their lives, they keep coming together, turning toward one another, and strengthening those relationships even in the face of conflict. So, like when we think about people with the same political views and they have a shared meaning, they come together collectively to pursue that. One of the things that I found in this, just working on this series, is in the culture that we're in, and I think across cultures in the world, many people, many of us have this false belief that having a conflict with another person means that there's something fundamentally wrong with the relationship. And one good example is in marriage. So the Gottmans actually, through their research, they found that full 69% of all marital conflicts never go away. So it could be like they could have a clash over a particular issue like money, housework, and sex. And they're likely to have a different flavor of that conflict forever. And that's okay. So why I wanted to share this is sometimes we have this fantastical vision of marriage and relationships that we should never have conflicts. It's just important for us to realize, one, we don't want to be in relationships where we're fighting all the time, right? But maybe finding why is it that we have these constant discussions all the time and deciding what to do about this. So one of the things that it's important to know is that many conflicts, most of them actually, they don't arise from pathology. They develop because we attach different meaning to the same situation, which then gets in the way of our ability to bid and respond to the other person's bid for connection. So let's say it's a conversation about money, the amount of money in the bank. You have a different attachment to the total balance in your bank account from your husband. And that gets in the way because if you attach so much meaning to your view of it, you will not understand when your spouse is trying to bid with you to connect and be on the same page, quote unquote. The other thing is that you can keep talking to one another and describing how you find meaning in that position and then reach a common ground. And in that common ground, meanings emerge, and then it's possible to compromise. Now, when we think about the differences that we may have with our partners or our friends or our kids, they may be based on so many factors. It could be, our diverse emotional histories or reliance on emotional command systems that are different. So, for example, you're a sentry and your partner is the commander-in-chief. So relying as that as your default way of making decisions based on your emotions, you may notice that you have differences. The differences may just simply indicate that you're trying to live according to what you find meaningful. What is important is to notice when you're being an idealist who chooses to have a different stance because of your different understanding and noticing the idealism in the other person, because that is how we can actually build emotional connection, right? If you have a stance, for example, I'm going to use the example of money. If you have a stance you have to have savings because, you were raised in a certain way, and then you're married to somebody who is a kind of YOLO kind of person who is okay with spending all the money in the bank, and just recognizing they're not doing it to spite you and you're not doing it to spite them. You just have ideal stands based on your experiences and your lived experiences, and you can recognize that and show up in compassion and curiosity. Oh, I wonder what makes this person have this perspective of money. And then realizing we don't have to be on the same page if I can understand where you're showing up from. If you think if we could just show up in our relationships, if we were in conflict and we say I know we don't agree on this one issue, but I truly understand that you're committed to your vision as I am to mine, and therefore I respect you. Showing up with a space of, I truly get where you're coming from, and I'm not going to be in that perspective, but I respect that, right? But how we do that is when we share the meaning that we hold when we are in conflict so that the other person can understand us. And so when we share those kinds of strongly held beliefs again, remember, beliefs are just thoughts that we have over and over and over and we choose to believe them. It's not that they can't be changed if we didn't want to. But let's say it's an issue that you're not really budging on, right? If you show up and share your source of conflict, and then you realize, oh, the reason we have this conflict is because I'm an idealist in this way, and the other person is an idealist in this way. When we recognize that, we turn towards each other and we connect emotionally. It doesn't mean that there will never be conflict or there will never be disagreement. We're just showing up in a way that has the other person knowing that we respect them and we respect ourselves, right? So it's not saying oh, you're just going to walk around and there's never going to be conflict. And when we have conflict, you're like, oh, I respect you, you respect me, and end of conflict. It's just saying we may continue with the disagreement, but we're showing up from a place of respecting each other. And that's what makes a difference. How do we achieve shared meanings in our relationship? One, again, is to recognize that conflict often stems from our idealism, right? So if we can uncover what the ideals are that are hidden within another person's position during conflict, we can often find shared common meaning. Another way is just for us to talk about our dreams and aspirations so that we can foster our support for each other in these quests. So I always tell the joke, when my husband and I met, I was just about to start grad school. I was going to be dirt poor and broke. And my husband tells this joke, and I know it's there was some truth to it. But he says, I met her, she was broke, she was going to school, but she told me her dreams, and I knew that this relationship was going to be a good investment. And it panned out because then we built this life together. We were supportive of each other. He knew that my dream was to be a nurse anesthetist. And he's now, in the past 3-4 years, he's known my dream is to build a business and support other women. And so he supports me as much as possible. I will say with one caveat, I do not abdicate responsibility of showing up in my business and in my life to my husband because of his support. So there are times when I'm like, oh, I don't feel like you're supportive of this. I will share that, but I don't expect that as the default because I know that he's also pursuing his own dreams and aspirations, right? Finally, we can achieve shared meaning through the use of rituals. That is regularly engaging in meaningful activities that draw people together emotionally. And we'll talk about that in just a little bit. So first, we become dream detectors, okay? So when we encourage one another's dreams and aspirations, we form more positive emotional connections. So when we focus on each other's dreams, we can also help our partners find shared meaning when there's a conflict, right? Because the idea is that we start to focus less on the conflict itself and more on the dreams, goals, and wishes that underlie each person's fixed position within that struggle. So again, going back to the money example, let's say the person's fixed position is because their dream is to have a bank account where they feel financially secure and they never have to worry about putting food on the table. And then you as a spender, your dream is to live a life full in color, right? So you realize then that the conflict shouldn't be the focus. It's to understand why do you show up in your life the way you do? Is it held on to the things that you have dreamt of and have strive to achieve, and then you no longer take fault when somebody has a different perspective than you do. One thing I want to talk a little bit about is hidden agendas. And that could be if you think about contentious issues that we don't talk about all the time. And I'm going to use the example of work. So let's say you're an employee and you want to leave work to go to your daughter's recital. Now, you may have a hidden agenda, which is a hidden dream, which is to find a better balance between your work and your family, right? But you don't tell your boss because you fear that your boss might think you're being lazy or trying to skip work. Meanwhile, Your boss also has an agenda or dream, which is to increase productivity so that the business will become more successful and benefit everybody. But then the boss is not pushy about it because he doesn't want the workers to leave, right? So those can be like hidden agendas. They're not malicious. It's just like, I'm not sharing my dream and aspiration in this case because I don't want to cause problems. Okay. Now, the trick to this is to like understand that, right? And instead of trying to like solve for what the other person is thinking, talk about the meaning that your position holds for you. And when you share that, right, you give the other person an alternative to simply arguing the pros and cons. So the other thing I want to share is like when you're in a conflict, ask yourself, what are the stories that support my ideas of what this situation means to me? And then check in with your feelings. Like, what feelings do I have about this issue? And what are my dreams, goals, or wishes related to those feelings? Now, I also want to say that if we have unacknowledged dreams, like our partners don't know, our friends don't know, our kids don't know, we don't know our kids' dreams, it can also influence the relationships, causing tension, resentment, and irritation. So just notice if one thing to look out for, if you and your partner are always having the same arguments over and over again and rehashing the same tired issues without ever reaching a satisfying resolution, not an agreement, a resolution, notice for yourself if there are dreams that are being kept hidden. And if it always feels like you're just spinning on your wheels, like trying to solve the problem, or you negotiate a solution and then you find that you never follow through with the settlement, like just pay attention to it. And instead of trying to solve the problem, start maybe trying to solve what dreams are hidden within the problem, because then you can have progress. Because suddenly you have the opportunity to address the feelings that have been interwoven into the fabric of that dream. And these may be emotions that we haven't explored before that are very deeply held. So just notice for yourself. The second thing about honoring another person's dreams is to trust the process and offer support. So again, you don't have to honor somebody's dream in the same exact way, but you can show them your support and respect, whether or not you choose to participate in the dream or even accept it. So how do you do that? One is to ask questions about their dreams and aspirations. And one question you can ask is like, what is the story behind that? Like, what made you want to do this thing? Then offer empathy. And it can just like simply saying, I may not agree with you, but I can totally see why this seems important to you. Or, now that, because I know you, I know why you feel this way, right? So validate them and offer emotional support. And you can say like, I'm proud of you because you feel so strongly about this. And I may not be able to do this with you, but I'm behind you 100%. And you can also participate in the dream in a limited level, like maybe reading about the issue. Like if your partner is like interested in advocacy of a certain type, they're passionate about it, maybe read up on the issue, help them when they're planning it, show up in support. You can also offer some level of support or resources. It could be, hey, I'm going to watch your kids so you can go like do this thing if it's a friend, right? Or if it's your partner, and this happens for me a lot, like where, a client like reschedules their coaching call, and I just let my husband know, hey, like I was going to do this at this time. Could you like back me up with childcare so I can take care of this aspect of my business? And like he doesn't understand the ins and outs of my business, but he understands it enough to know when I need his support. And then work together when you have conflict, so you can identify the problems that are causing ongoing conflict. It could be just like taking 5 minutes to consider silently what life dreams may be connected to your position in conflict, and then noticing what are the issues that keep coming up. Talk about it together. So last but not least, we're going to talk a little bit about rituals, exploring the rituals you share and creating new ones. So sharing rituals can really help you by helping you build stronger bonds. And when you have emotional connection rituals, you actually could have some structure in your life to ensure that bids for connection happen on a regular basis. So rituals are repeated over and over again so they become predictable. So everybody knows what to expect and everyone knows what their responsibility is in the ritual. But the important difference between rituals and routines is that rituals have symbolic meaning. So like if you think about brushing your teeth versus kissing your partner good morning every day, right? Brushing your teeth, it's just a responsibility. But the good morning kiss can be the thing that your partner looks up forward to every morning. You can, create rituals around lovemaking, taking vacations together. How do you unwind at the end of a long day or a long week? It could be any ritual that your family, you and your partner, you and your kids, you and your friends can come to show like you're connecting at a deeper level. They also symbolize cultural identity and values that we share with our families, friends, and work groups or the larger community. So if you think about religious rituals or they help us like really make emotional connection because we have to take the time to do them. So one of the reasons why many people cite as a reason for not forming deeper connection is because they say they don't have time. And so having rituals solves the problem because there is some sort of predictability. Like let's say the holidays, right? We do have some predictability and intention during those seasons because we know that's how we're going to connect with our loved ones. Just notice, like, they don't have to be elaborate rituals, right? It could be like tucking your child into bed, like reading a story before bed. It gives that person, the child, an extra feeling of trust in the relationship and in the world around them, right? Like every day they like look forward to that is the one thing. Remember, rituals can help us stay connected. We can say, like, for me and my husband, we have this saying, like, okay, we don't go to bed mad, like, we'll unpack it in the morning, but we still have this ritual, like we don't go to bed mad without kissing each other goodnight. Like it helps us be connected even when we are in the midst of a conflict. The other thing with rituals, though, is to consider the emotional command systems of the person. So like, for example, you could be a nest builder. So your rituals are really like rituals that involve outward expression of belonging and support. And then the jester might like rituals that provide entertainment and diversion, like they can plan all these trips together, like we do an annual family trip, whatever. So just pay attention to your emotional command system when maybe structuring rituals in your life. One thing about rituals is that they can have the potential to be a positive experience, but they can also have negative experience, like especially in families and groups where somebody uses rituals to manipulate other people or cause a rift. So it could be like being very rigid about manners, holiday celebration, religious observation. That can really harm a relationship. It could also happen if somebody bears too much responsibility from making a ritual happen. So this especially, I see it around the holidays, Easter, Christmas, when you're a mom and you just like want everything to be perfect and then you become overburdened and resentful. What I offer you is really look at these rituals and what they mean to you, and then maybe decide, like, what do you want it to be different? So one of the things that they talked about in the book is like sometimes like some people have like this thing where their holiday celebrations were ruined by a belligerent alcoholic relative. And I just remember that. And forgotten birthdays. Those can be like very like painful for some people. So if you examine those rituals and you notice that there's some unresolved feelings with those, like maybe decide that you want to change them and to change them in a way that serves you. It's just important to notice, like, you may not even want to bring some of those rituals along. It just may be just not your thing. So last but not least, we're going to talk about how to put everything we've been talking about together in a brief summary. You can have the foundation, but you have to go out and do the work, right? So we talked about step 1, which was looking at your bids for connection and look for opportunities to turn towards the person bidding. So I want you to think about things to do for your spouse, like asking about his day, saying thank you, things to do for your kid, tucking them into bed, preparing a snack for them, something. And then things to do together with the person you want to connect with, like hugging, kissing upon parting or returning. Create that and notice your bids for connection. Step 2 is to pay attention to how your brain's emotional command systems affect your relationships. Number 3 is examine how your emotional heritage affects your relationships with your spouse, your child, your friend, the person you're dating. Just pay attention, be in awareness, and stay cognizant. Step 4 is sharpen your skills at emotional communication with the person that you want to have a better relationship with. Last but not least is the step we talked about today, which is find shared meaning in the relationship. Find shared meaning in your marriage, your motherhood, your friendship, whatever relationship is. Start to build that shared meaning because it's at the very heart of that sound relationship house. This brings our series to an end. I have been so happy to get feedback from you, learn with you, walk this journey with you, and I hope you're going to take these steps, put them together, build the relationships that you want to have, show up for the relationships that you want to have because you deserve amazing relationships. So I will talk to you next week. I'll see you then. Bye now. I'm Shira Bergbauer, and you've been listening to the Stethoscopes to Swaddles podcast. New episodes are out every Monday. These episodes are created by me, Shira Bergbauer, and produced by Cassidy Mitchell. If you enjoyed this show or found it helpful, please rate it and review us on Apple Podcasts. If the concepts I share on this podcast resonate with you, or you're ready to change your relationships and mindset, I can help you. If you'd like in-depth, personalized support, I'd love to invite you to apply for my Life and Mindset coaching program. Just imagine you and I every week working together as I teach you the tools to up-level your life. To book your free 1-hour consultation call, go to www.stethoscopestoswaddles.com/consultation. You're doing a great job, Mama. Have a great week. Bye now.